Hello to all my favorite math students. Today we're going to move on and talk about Unit 2, Lesson 9, which is add and subtract decimals. So as you can see on here, we've got a couple examples, but I'm going to point out before we even get started, the most important part of adding and subtracting decimals is this right here. We have to line up the decimal points. You will hear me say that multiple times because it will give you a wrong answer if you do not. So let's move on into our lesson. So the first question that we have says, Z wants to make 2 liters of pink lemonade for a party. She squeezed the 8 lemons she had and got 375 thousandths liters of lemon juice. She had 35 hundredths liters of cranberry juice and 1 2/10 liters of water. How much lemonade can she make, and how much more or less than 2 liters will she have? So, using what we know, how could we estimate the amount of lemonade Z can make? Well, when we estimate, we round. So we would round each amount. So if we look at the first one, we had 375 thousandths. We could say that that's pretty close to half a liter. Our next amount would be 35 hundredths. And we could say that that also is pretty close to half a liter. And then our last amount is 1 2/10. That one we would probably say is closer to 1 liter. So to find out the amount she would have, we would take these 3 estimates and put them together. So we know that half and half would give us 1, and then we would add 1 more liter, so it gives us 2 liters as an estimate. Okay, so B says, how can you read the amount of each ingredient in words? Well, you would do it just like I just said. So, for the first amount, you say the numbers just like you would if it was a whole number. So 375, and then it's 3 places behind the decimal, which is the thousandths place. So you would say 375 thousandths. Our second amount, you'd say it just like without the decimal, so it would be 35, and then 2 places behind the decimal is hundredths. So it would be 35 hundredths. And then the last one, you say the whole number, so 1, and then the decimal you would say and, because that means you're putting a decimal there. So 1 and 2/10, because tenths is the first place behind the decimal. C, how can you convert these different amounts to thousandths? Well, with decimals, you just add zeros to get to the place that you need to be. So, if we're looking at thousandths, we need to make sure that there's 3 numbers behind the decimal point. So, in this case, our 375 thousandths doesn't need any zeros because I've already got 3 places. Our 35 hundredths only has 2 places, so I add 1 0 to turn that into thousandths. The 0 doesn't change the value of the number, it just puts an extra place there. The 0 does not actually change the value. And then our last one is 1 2/10. Well, I have 1 place behind the decimal, so I add 2 zeros to make that 1 200 thousandths, and that would be equivalent to 1 2/10. So for the next question, D, how can you write an addition expression to make sure the place values line up? Remember what I said on the very first page. We line up our decimals. Hold on, back up. There we go. We line up the decimals. And then I can write them up and down. So I would have 375 thousandths I would have 35 hundredths, or if I wrote it as thousandths so that they all have the same amount, 350 thousandths. And then 1 and, same thing, 200 thousandths, so that I have all the same amount of decimal places. So then I could add it from there. So the next question says, write the sum that represents the total amount of lemonade. Remember, sum means the answer to an addition problem. So basically we're going to add these up. 5 plus 0 is 5. 7 plus 5 plus 0 is 12. So I carry my 1. 3 plus 3 is 6. Plus 2 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. My decimal point comes straight down. And then 0 plus 0 plus 1 is 1. So the sum that represents the total of lemonade would be 1 and 925 thousandths liters. F, how can you find the difference between that number and 2 liters? Well, just like what we did up above, we can subtract, because that's what difference means, the answer to a subtraction problem. We would subtract 1 and 925 thousandths from 2. So if I line these up, 2 is a whole number. The decimal would go behind the 2. And then I would line up my decimal, so 1 and 925 thousandths. And just like up above, I need to fill in my places so that they have the same amount of decimal places. So in this case, that means 3 zeros. So then we can subtract to find our difference. I have to borrow across. So that crosses out, the 2 becomes a 1, which makes this a 10. But I'm borrowing from it to be a 9. Makes this a 10, I'm borrowing from it again, so it's a 9, and this one's a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5, 9 minus 2 is 7, 9 minus 9 is 0. Bring the decimal point straight down, 1 minus 1 is 0. So we can see that the difference is 75 thousandths, because it's 3 decimal places, liters. So let's find out more. So you can see that what you know about adding and subtracting whole numbers can help you add and subtract decimals to the thousands. The important thing is that you have to make sure you're adding the same place values. So some ways you can do this is you can use a place value chart like this one here to help you keep everything lined up. And you can see on this that all of our decimals are here, and then you can see everything is lined up. They fill in zeros whenever the original number doesn't have a place. Okay, those zeros hold that spot so you don't lose anything. When you see the add-ins in a place value chart, you can see that you can add zeros before the first digit in a decimal or after the last digit in a decimal to help you keep the place value straight. You would get completely different answers if you ignored the decimals and just added all those numbers together. Okay, the same is true for subtraction. So just like we did on the previous page, we added our zeros in so that we held those place values. So using what we did up above and on the previous page, what is the difference between adding whole numbers and adding decimals? Well, really, with whole numbers, we line up let's try that again, a little sloppy today. We line up the numbers by the ones place. With decimals, we line them up by what? The decimal. Like I said previously, I'm going to be saying this a lot. So always line up your decimals when you are adding and subtracting. Say it again. Always line up your decimals when you are adding and subtracting, and then you fill in zeros where you need.
Okay, now top of page 82. Yes, Miss Long just got a really deep voice, so it's your lucky day. Read the problem below, then explore how to add more than two add-ins that have decimals to thousandths with different numbers of digits. Mara is going on a plane. She can't have a carry-on backpack that weighs more than 10 pounds. She weighed the items she wants to pack on a sensitive scale. Book 5.142 pounds, which is 5 and 142 thousandths. Jacket is 3 and 6/10 pounds. Backpack is 1 and 28/100 pounds. What is the total weight of these items? You can estimate, so you can round each decimal fraction up or down and then add them together in your head. For example, 5 and 142 thousandths is close to 5, 3 and 6/10 is close to 4, and 1 and 28/100 is close to 1. So picture it. You can also picture it right here, and then you can use the place value chart to line up your decimal points. That's the key, is lining up your decimals. Top of page 83. Connect it. Look at estimate it on the previous page. What is an estimate of the total weight? It would be about 10 pounds. You can round each decimal to the nearest whole number. You can round each decimal to the nearest whole number. How does the place value chart help you add decimals? Well, it helps you see place value. How can you add decimals without a place value chart to make sure you are adding the same place values? You just line up the decimal points. I'm just going to put line them up. Line them up, up, line them up, line them up, up. I'm on fire! You guys know that one. Find the sum. Explain how you know that your answer is reasonable. Well, my answer is close to 10 because when I add these up, I'm going to get 10.022. 6. Does Mara's backpack weigh less than 10 pounds? No. It's over. What's it over by? 22 thousandths. And then how do you add decimals to the thousandths? Line up the decimals. Alright guys, now you're going to do the try it on 8 and 9. Go ahead and try it. Again, this is on your own. Go for it. And there's your answers for 8 and 9. Top of page 84. Read the problem below, then explore how to subtract decimals to the thousandths with different numbers of digits. So Walter wanted to compare the great pitcher Walter Johnson's earned run average, ERA, to other great pitchers to find out how much lower it was. A lower ERA is better than a higher ERA. He found these pitchers' lifetime ERA statistics. Walter Johnson, 2 and 167 thousandths. Sandy Koufax, 2 and 76 hundredths. How much better was Walter Johnson's ERA than Sandy Koufax's ERA? Estimate it. You can round. Again, 2.167 is close to 2 and 2/10. And 2 and 76 hundredths is close to 2 and 8/10. Picture it. You can put the ones, the tenths, the hundredths, and the thousandths, or line them up with the model it. Connect it. Look at estimated on the previous page. What is an estimate of the difference? And then explain your answer. Well, it's going to be about 6/10, and then you just simply found it by rounding. Found by rounding. How is subtracting decimals similar to adding decimals? Well, you must align the decimals and pay attention to place value. 12. Why is it important to pay attention to 0 in the subtraction problem? Well, to subtract 7 thousandths from 0 thousandths, I need to regroup 1/100th. How much better was Walter Johnson's ERA than Sandy Koufax? Found the difference and model it. Well, it was 5 and 93 thousandths. It's close to 6, right? Explain how you got your answer is reasonable. That is close to 6/10. What is a way to check your answer? Well, you could add 593 thousandths and 2 and 167 thousandths, and it should equal 2 and 760 thousandths. Compare subtracting decimals and subtracting whole numbers. Well, in both, you regroup and subtracting whole numbers, align the digits on the right in the ones place. And then decimals, align the digits to the decimal point. Align the decimal point. Line them up, line them up. You know you want to sing it. 16, explain how you subtract decimals to the thousandths. Line up the decimal points. Line up decimal points and subtract. As you would normally. Okay, try it. 17 and 18. It's on your own. 17, you should get that, and 18, you should get there you go. There's that. Thanks for playing.